Diablo 4, who? No one cares. Can you please die faster? Path of Exile 2, Zoomers are mad because the game is not zoomy enough, plus there are bugs. Which is kinda ironic considering this is how literally the game was being sold to people. That there's gonna be bugs. Congratulations, you're an alpha tester because the devs don't want to play their own game. And last Epoch is kind of absolutely slaying it. The Viva season is looking kind of absolutely amazing, and everyone loves it, including me. Again, last Epoch, my favorite game of these three.
Hey folks, this is Riker, and things are looking really good for Last Epoch right now. Path of Exile 2 has hit mostly negative recent reviews on Steam, and Diablo 4 unveiled its 2025 roadmap this week, and it doesn't seem to be inspiring confidence in the player base. Meanwhile, Last Epoch...
I talked about all of this. Diablo 4's roadmap is what you do when you're desperate because you want some semblance of hype, but you have nothing to offer.
Xbox Hype Week leading up to its Season 2 launch next Thursday has been getting a lot of players excited. We'll talk about all that and more in this week's news wrap-up video, and we're going to start with Diablo 4. We got this week again the reveal of the roadmap for D4 in 2025 leading into 2026, and I got to interview Brent Gibson, game director on Diablo 4.
I've watched this, and he dies inside when it's the time to talk about Diablo 4. Riker just dies inside.
About the roadmap to get more context. If you haven't seen my interview, you can find it on my website, Riker.com, which brings us to a...
It's pretty depressing, by the way, so don't.
Riker. All right, back to Diablo 4 news. Again, Blizzard just dropped their roadmap for D4's future, laying out plans all the way through 2025 and 2026. They give us a tease of the seasonal updates coming, as well as a new expansion, new ranking system coming in 2026, along with leaderboards. Now, earlier this year at a convention...
What the hell does ranking system even mean in Diablo 4? What? Is there a ranking system? What are we talking about? The ladder board? Is that the ranking system? Who cares?
Diablo boss Rod Ferguson had spoken about how when they revealed a roadmap for Diablo Immortal, that really energized the player base, that got people logging in and playing, and I imagine the D4 roadmap was done in order to have that same effect in D4. And
wait a minute, that's something that we can test. And in fact, that's something that we can test ridiculously easily. D4 Steam DB. Let's check. Okay, should probably have this like on my quick bot or something. Okay, so wait a minute. Let me adjust this, and now let's switch the screen so you can also see it. DB. Okay, so here's the Diablo 4 DB in all of its non-existential glory. So I have no idea when the roadmap was dropped. Maybe it was here. Maybe it was here. Maybe it was here. Maybe. The point is, none of this looks like people even gave a shit. I don't even understand why would people care about Diablo Immortal. Like, how many people honestly cared about that roadmap? Like, 5? Diablo Immortal is only played by the most depraved part of societies that should probably be sent to an El Salvadorian prison to just, vanish for eternity. But hey, maybe that's just me.
I don't think that's going to happen given the preliminary responses to the roadmap. Part of that was seeing some features that players have been asking for, like leaderboards, being put off all the way to 2026. But I think the big part of it was that the roadmap basically just showed that we can expect...
But don't we have leaderboards? Also, who cares?
Largely more of the same going forward, with seasons that bring us seasonal powers, the kind that we've sort of come to expect by now. But I do think that in my interview with Brent Gibson, we learned a little bit more that gives more reason to be hopeful for the future. Part of that was because he spoke about what felt like pretty significant...
Wait a minute. I just want to compare real quick Diablo 4 to Last Epoch and Path of Exile 1 and 2. In Diablo 4, the only way to make the game interesting is by adding some kind of borrowed over shit tier mechanic or something like that. The same that World of Warcraft does. Why? Because the game in general is just too drawn out and it has no idea what it wants to do, and it's just boring. Last Epoch, Path of Exile, these games make an expansion, make a something, and there's a seasonal mechanic, but there's no borrowed power or anything like that. Maybe you get a new skill or something. Maybe you get a new item that changes how a skill works, if we're talking about Last Epoch or something. But you don't get these borrowed powers. And why? Because the base game is fun enough, it's good enough, and people like it enough. Diablo 4, the base game is still shit. The base game is still trash and unplayable for the most part. So they need to add these, as effectively they're just spraying. What's it called? What's the thing that you spray and makes things smell differently? Perfume. They're just spraying perfume on shit and hoping it doesn't stink.
Changes or reworks to Nightmare Dungeons as well as Infernal Hordes. Another part was that he effectively said that as we get later and later into the roadmap, things can be very much more subject to change. They want to remain reactive to the community. Also, for players who had felt that Diablo 4 was getting just way too easy, starting with Season 8, there's meant to be much more focus on bringing challenge back to the game without making it,
not happening,
just soul-crushing for newer players. Challenge and variety were two words that he...
The sad part is, I know challenge probably sounds good for some of you watching this, but the reality is when Diablo 4 devs are talking about challenge, they're literally just talking about increasing creature, enemy, HP, and damage and defensive numbers. That's it. That's literally it.
He focused on. Again, though, the majority of the community reactions to the roadmap have been to see it as a pretty weak roadmap. It's sort of starting to feel like just a copy-paste of seasonal powers, which is already what we were starting to feel, and now it's basically confirmed to be copy-paste powers for the rest of the year. It almost feels as though the devs saw how much people loved Season 2, and they're just kind of modeling all future seasons off of that formula. It's a good formula, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with giving us borrowed power, but the vehicle through which that power comes probably would be good if we can shake it up a bit more here and there. Even Season 3 getting the Seneschal, at least it was a little bit different. That power was on something else. But for instance, in other games, we'll see seasons that do things like, here's this entire, evolving weapon crafting mechanic, or here's a whole little, town management thing where you can get different resources through an entirely new, system. Now, even Mike Ibarra, former Blizzard president, chimed in on Twitter with some pretty candid feedback. He tweeted, quote, "My personal opinion on the top Diablo 4 issues. 1. Don't ship to check a box. Seasons need to get off the cycle of shipping, spending 2 months to fix issues, then repeating. 2. Pause and give the team time to really address the end game issues. Playing for a week to then 1 or 3 shot a uber boss 500 times for a unique, then quitting until next season.
He knows. He actually knows.
Is fundamentally not fun. 3. Expand.
Yeah, but this is what every single player in Diablo 4 demanded. This is literally what every single Diablo 4 fanboy wanted. This is what Reddit screamed needs to happen. I've been saying, I've been yapping about this nonstop for years now. This is what Blizzard does. They make a system that actually doesn't requires you to conserve resources sometimes, to think what you want to do instead of doing everything. And the Diablo fucking fanboys are like, I can't think, I need everything. And then they're like, well, everyone's yelling that, might as well do it. And yes, this is reality. Because everyone complained when it's like, oh, I need to farm for Ubers? That's stupid. Let me just farm them anyway. And then people... See, if there is no amount of farming you need to do to get into the late game, if everything is just granted to you constantly and you one-shot everything, the concept of the late game can't exist. Because you fundamentally don't want a late game. You just want reward for doing nothing, but it's so low that you actually feel like you're doing nothing, and that's bad.
Expansion schedule is too long, should be yearly. Reduce story investment, costs so much for a one-time element in an area.
Bro, well, they shouldn't even have a story. If you haven't seen me summarizing up and summarizing the Diablo 4 Vessel Hatred storyline, go watch it. It makes literally no fucking sense. The whole story starts with, "Oh, you're our enemy. We should kill you, but we're not." And then there's like some kind of random girl with broken legs saying, "Haha, I'm your friend. Now go do things." It is just painful. It is stupid.
RPG and focus on new classes, new mob types, new endgame activities that last more than a few days. If the cycle continues to ship without fixing the fundamental issues, then I'm not sure where Diablo is going. You can add all the endgame activities you want, but you'll be running in place with the same issues. At some point, there's just so many random things, it's not worth the effort. And in response to someone replying that the game has too much loot, he said definitely needs a loot filter that works. Now, on the endgame side of things, there's a big question mark around the whole Nightmare Dungeon rework that's happening and how that might play into and fit into things.
Oh, it's not gonna do anything. No one wants to even set foot in the Nightmare Dungeon ever because they're designed so poorly, no one wants to play them.
Version. Alright, moving on to Path of Exile news. Ooh, where do we start here? Okay. Patch 0.2 for Path of Exile 2, aka Dawn of the Hunt, dropped 8 days ago now. And I don't even know that I can say it's been divisive. It's been pretty...
Let me explain the problem. So, this is it, okay? I'll explain the problem. This is Path of Exile 2's Dawn of the Hunt patch. This is the Huntress. The Huntress is supposed to be a combo character where you need to do a lot of fucking yippity yappity things, okay? And here's the player base fucking mad that there is a character that's designed for slower gameplay where they can just not zoom around, and they actually are supposed to, like, you know, combo things to do things and get results. And they're like, man, why isn't this for... Yesterday I watched a summary, a summarization of fucking Path of Exile 2 players playing the game and complaining how shit it is. And you know what I saw? I saw fucking the 7 gates of hell, baby. That's what I saw. I almost offed myself. I was looking to find a spoon and thinking, okay, is this the day I find a way to make the spoon go through my head? Maybe. You know what I saw? I saw people fighting a boss, and the boss attacks like this. Very basic attacks. It's actually a basic attack boss or something like that. And there's a guy who has a wind-up slow attack that needs to be fucking timed, and he's like, why isn't my attack happening? How is this game run? Now, I'm not saying bring back the camps. Now, I'm not saying eugenicists had a point. But fuck, maybe we do need to bring back a camp or two. You know what I'm saying? Because this is just unacceptable levels of stupidity.
Yeah.
And there were so many clips like that. People being like, "Oh, the boss is attacking me," and then the boss attack animation. Well, the boss attack sequence is like 5 seconds or something like that. And then they have like 3 seconds to attack the boss, or 5 seconds. And then the boss starts again some kind of attack. And people are like, why isn't the boss... Well, the boss constantly attacking. I can't even attack. Just what is it? I hate you. I hate you so much. I wish you didn't exist. You're all fucking meat puppets. Meat popsicles.
Not well received by fans, especially in the early days before GGG had a chance to drop some emergency patches, before there was an interview with Scissorin, before people were able to start feeling good about the game again. Things got pretty dire there for a while. On Steam, the game has reached mostly negative reviews, as per recent reviews at least. It hasn't infected the overall reviews, but recent reviews are mostly negative. Dawn of the Hunt was meant to be a huge win for the game. So many people were looking forward to the Huntress, and just it turned into a whole
A class is not made for me. Wah.
what is going on moment from the community. Some of the bigger pain points were that the whole emphasis on combo-based combat, while theoretically, sure, that sounds cool on paper, but in practice, having to pull off complex combos multiple times just to take out white monsters, it just becomes tedious over time.
Now, the point. Now, here is a point, but none of those people said this point. Yes, to kill a basic white monster, you probably shouldn't need a 4-button combo. But for anything above that, yeah, you should. That's how it's designed to be like. That's the point of it.
And that's if the monsters even give you a chance to do it. Monsters' speed is so fast that you can't get a combo off. And if your combo is interrupted, then it's basically just a huge waste of time. Other complaints are about the size of the maps. The campaign is just way too long to go through again. You know, we're talking for like the best players, maybe 10 hours, average, you know, maybe 20 to 30. And if you're a little bit slower, we're talking 30 plus hours to finish the campaign. A part of that is due to, especially in Act 3, the zone size is getting so large. And then there's the loot crisis.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm pretty sure the average person in PoE 1 needed like an hour to finish each act. No, wait, that's probably even fucking fast. I'm not sure how, but I mean, it's not really that ridiculous. Now, granted, currently we only have the 3 acts, right? So there is a problem with that. And yeah, unreasonably big maps for just being big is not the thing that I like. But I mean, most people who are currently complaining are literally just saying, "Oh, you need a straight corridor." Like if these people would be playing Diablo 2, they would lose their shit.
I don't know what happened. I had a very different experience than when I first played PoE 2. I think I was lucky with my loot on my first playthrough, and I was also playing a minion witch, so my weapon wasn't all that important.
Well, minions being trash is a problem.
Like getting a good weapon that all my damage would scale off of. I was playing a huntress, and Act 1 was, Act 1 was good. Act 2, by the time I got to Act 3, I just felt like I was just constantly struggling at everything. Everything felt like a struggle. I couldn't have enough gold to really buy anything. All of my gold was being spent on respecking, just kind of changing things here and there, changing strength to dex to strength to meet gear and skill attributes, or just realizing, okay, this build isn't working out, let me see if I can change a couple things to something better to improve my build. Like, I just constantly poor, constantly broke. I'm never finding any.
Well, that is a problem. I bet this is like a 50-50 split, a problem of the game and the players.
Crafting resources, crafting currency. I could like maybe add another modifier to a blue item. That's about it. I wasn't getting any good drops either. Fortunately, I was playing with a couple other people in my party. They were actually the ones giving me weapon upgrades. If not for them, I would have like just been screwed. The couple times I got a weapon upgrade, a better spear, it was because someone in my party happened to be able to buy it from their shop for me, because I just had no luck with drops. And you really feel the struggle being a build that depends on your weapon for your damage. Seeing your level going higher and higher, you're not getting a new weapon. You're falling increasingly behind on DPS. It's taking longer and longer to kill monsters. You're getting drops for freaking every other class and build except for your own. So I'm struggling to get loot. I'm struggling to have gold to even afford respecs.
Well, I mean, if these are your problems, you should play Diablo 4. I'm just gonna sum it up for you real quick.
Struggling to kill monsters. It's just everything is a struggle. I don't feel strong. I'm not getting any good, satisfying moments. I'm getting no good gear, so like all my resists are garbage.
Like, is this gameplay supposed to be the bad one? I don't really understand, because this gameplay looks kind of good.
because I don't have any items, I don't have any currency, I can't do anything about it. I can't even level up my skill gems anymore because I can't meet the stat requirements.
These are all things that happen in PoE 1, though. You literally take a skill to use, and you don't level it up because you don't have the attribute. Yeah, it happened quite often, in fact, by the way. And the item thing, yeah, that also happened in PoE 1. There were certain points where you would go without an upgrade for like fucking 15 levels. That was also normal. I don't know. This all of the things that he's talking about are already how PoE 1 worked the last time I played it.
For the higher tier skill gems. Now, if you folks would remember from last week, my initial impression was positive. Again, early levels, Act 1, all that felt good, even going into Act 2. But just as things were going further and further, and my bad luck was compounding and compounding and compounding, I just started to feel like I'm drowning more and more in every aspect of the game. And the game just makes me feel like I'm bad and I should feel bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I think having a challenging game is totally okay. But I think games that are going to be challenging and are going to make you struggle, I think the more the struggle, the better the payoff has to be. But when it's just struggle, 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 and never any...
This is a fallacy. The reward of struggle is overcoming the struggle. Not necessarily some kind of fucking shiny thing at the end of the road. Okay, so not last Epoch 2, but Path of Exile 2 is trying to be more like the Dark Souls, the Elden Ring of gaming. And in those games, you defeat a boss, you're not necessarily getting a reward. Your reward for defeating a boss or an enemy is the fact that you defeated the boss and an enemy because it at least has some challenge to it. Okay? For example, in Diablo 2, when you go into the Bloodmoor in Act fucking 1, level 1, and you kill a fallen, your reward for killing a fallen is not the fact that you killed the fallen, but it's the fact that you chased after a fucking fallen that was running away from you and bashed his fucking head in. That was the reward. And it's experience, in this case at least. But you get, the form of rewards can be, well, very different just from getting a loot chest at the end of something. Arguably, the fact of, and the reason why Diablo 4 is so shit is because all of the rewards for playing the game are literally only loot chests, because when everything is that easy, the only reward can be loot.
payoff, it just becomes soul crushing. So again, initial response to Dawn of the Hunt was not great, but to GGG's credit, they were fast to respond. They seemed to work throughout the weekend. First 2 days, they were putting out emergency patches to tweak things here and there. And then they also had what was a pretty intense interview.
And then people are still complaining.
Led by streamer Zizarin. And it started off a little hostile from both camps.
I saw parts of it. Shit wasn't hostile. They just hated each other.
Zizarin opened with, he did a good job representing the Vox Populi. The community was pretty upset at that point, and so, kind of asking what the hell. Sort of set off a bit of a defensive tone from Jonathan in his responses, but towards the end of the interview, or as the interview kept going, things smoothed out, and Jonathan even apologized for his defensive tone. I mean, you got to understand, from his perspective, this is his baby. He's very invested. He's clearly...
It's the vision! It's the vision!
Super passionate.
Now, don't get me wrong, by the way. I'm not supporting everything here, but I mean, most people who are completely fucking unhappy with this are people who don't like Diablo 4 and don't understand that they are demanding that the Path of Exile 2 becomes more Diablo 4 because of the things that they want changed.
About the game, super invested in it. They've just come off of a weekend of intense work, probably a lot of grind, and then just getting a ton of backlash from the community, a lot of personal attacks, which are completely uncalled for.
And again, we're watching this, and does this feel bad to you? Maybe the amount of zero drops feels. He probably has a little filter though. Maybe the amount that nothing is dropping seems kind. Well, not seems, but that is nothing dropping like this is kind of bad though.
On him and his character, it's understandable why he would.
But this seems good. This seems a good pace. You see that he's comboing to kill big minions, and he's doing the combos. Arguably, is he doing the combos right? No, but still
defensive. But I'm glad that things did smooth out. Mark was absolutely indispensable in that interview. He truly was the MVP, and I think after the interview, a lot of the community felt a lot better about where things would be going. In the wake of that interview, we saw almost immediate action being taken by GGG, and by the end of the week, we got a patch that addressed enemy move speed, which again was one of the big things, right? We have this combo-based gameplay. You can't pull off your combos because enemies are coming at you too fast. We're getting buffs to crafting via new runes that'll allow you to add stat like strength, intelligence, dex.
Oh yeah, the runes are OP. Well, not OP, but they're good.
Into your gear.
Anyway, they're slowly fixing things, but I'm very happy that they're not fixing things in the sense that they're just completely devaluating everything. Now, Division is a meme, but I like Division in the sense that it's not going to be Path of Exile 1, so that's good enough for me. That's all I care. And last Epoch.
With your thoughts. And moving on to last Epoch news, as I know a lot of players are now happily turning over to last Epoch in the wake of everything that's been going on. Season 2 again launches April 17th. It's bringing endgame updates, class reworks, massive quality of life changes. Oh, and you can actually get a capybara pet. I got 2 videos that I posted earlier this week that go over some of the new content coming. Do check those out if you haven't seen it. But
okay, I guess there's not a lot to talk about. Look at that. You have your own Atlas map, 10 out of 10, you know? A lot of interesting things. Anyway, that was Riker, 10 out of 10. Bye.